Good evening. Let's have a word of prayer tonight, shall we? As we begin, we'll ask God's blessing on our time of Bible study and prayer. Heavenly Father, thank you for the blessing that we have just in being children of God. Thank you for the fact that we are joint heirs together with Christ and all the spiritual blessings in the heavenlies, Paul has assured us, are actually ours. Thank you for the anticipation we have that someday we'll be in the physical, personal presence with our Savior. We look forward to that day. While we're here on earth, we pray that you would make us to be a testimony and a witness for Christ. Now tonight, guide us as we share Scripture together, not only here in our building and our young people meeting as well, but wherever God's word is proclaimed and where your people gather for prayer. Do honor and bless, we pray in Jesus' name. Amen. So tonight we continue what we have been working on. We are cutting a rather wide swath all the way through this field of studying the Bible together. Our primary goal is to be reminded and focus on how important words are, and that takes as much into account as we want to try to package into a series like this. We're not limited to one particular text of Scripture, but actually you're dealing with two primary things that go on anytime there's communication, and that would be we have semantics or words, and we have syntax or word structure, order, and development. All the things that are lined up in those great arenas are instrumental in God communicating divine truth that is way beyond our ability to bear and to understand, and yet putting that into a formal language and a structure that is ours in whatever mother tongue we have. Originally, of course, the Old Testament Hebrew and portions in Aramaic, New Testament in Greek. The Old Testament language was capable of bearing grand thoughts. It is more difficult to learn than is Greek because the Greek language has more similarity phonetically, sound-wise, grammar-wise, structure-wise, with our side of the world. So the Indo-European languages have come down to us, and we're in the English language, but that's a derivative going all the way back and further even than the Greek language. But we have some commonality there. But the Hebrew language, of course, is of a different structure, reading from right to left. The alphabet is totally different. The guttural sounds are way beyond our realm. But the Hebrew language, though a little more simple grammatically, it is still very fluent, very colorful, and had the concepts of the early world and the Middle East. We're spending the majority of our time in the New Testament, but both would certainly be well worth our while. Right now we've carved out a little niche that actually proves to be a big niche. You open the small door and you step in like Alice in Wonderland, and then you look around and you realize you are in such a vast place. And these prepositions are many and they're fascinating. But I want to expose you a little more tonight to the challenge of these pesky little words. I call them the little big words. I've put this together, and I'm doing this here in the English language. I have this, I've taken this from what is designed for a course of those who know something of Greek, and some of you do. But all of these are words, and the key word to remember in the purpose and the function of prepositions is relationship. So prepositions are designed to show a relationship within a sentence structure. Very often they're two nouns. They may be longer phrases than that, but they have a working relationship. And hence, last week I showed you the chart of the mouse and the cheese. So you have two entities very often, and is the mouse in front of the cheese, or behind the cheese, or on top of the cheese, or above the cheese, or below the cheese, or parallel beside the cheese, or going into the cheese, or coming out of the cheese, or all these relationship terms are very significant and vital to any kind of communication. How do you communicate with anybody unless you can demonstrate relationship? And if the prepositions, the words themselves that you use to show relationship, have either such a wide range of meaning or they're unknown to whoever's using it or hearing it, how do you communicate a thought? How do you get an idea across? And I hope to show you an example or more of that here very shortly. So if you notice, I want to begin by showing you just some of the associations, and I hope that you would begin to gain some facility in realizing both the precision and the accuracy, but then also the comparison, and begin to grab a hold of the idea that, well, one preposition doesn't mean the same thing as another preposition, and one will work and the other won't work. Although in some associations you actually can have some similarities between prepositions, but that doesn't mean they're interchangeable. So let's talk about associations for a minute. In the green, before, in front of, face to face, pra. Our English would be pre. It could be ahead of, it could be before, prosopon. Optic is our OP, optic, pros, op, and pros is before. So it's face toward face. That's what prosopon or face means. It's face. It's the optics of what's in front of you. You see a person's face. But we have the pra, but we also have the toward. And the only difference between those two is that we've added a sigma, an S sound, to the final consonant of that expression. So pra is before, pros is moving toward. The sigma always denotes motion. So we added motion. Pra is I'm standing before you tonight. Pra says I'm walking toward you. So that's the difference, is we just added a movement. The sound of the sigma, the meaning of the sigma, the S, is movement. You'll also notice that we've got up on top in the purple, above, over, hooper, down below, hoopa. Not a big difference between the two, but there's a big difference in the significance and the meaning of those prepositions. Because if you're above, then you're not below. If you're hiding something, you might be hiding it above, but let's not waste our time looking up in the ceiling for something if you actually meant to say you're hiding it below. The difference between in, which becomes a core significant preposition that's loaded with theological meaning, and it means inside, in, within. But we can do something else, because we can step on the outside of that circle away from the interior, and we can add that sigma again. And archaically, in early Greek, the preposition became ens. Ens. It's in, except the sigma means we're moving into. We're coming from the outside, going in. So ace, originally ens, and the Greek writings that were very old did spell it epsilon nu sigma, E-N-S, not E-I-S. It became ace for euphony. The word euphony means good sound. It's easier to pronounce. You know, we have a lot of tongue twisters. Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers, and say that so many times and see how that comes out. And so if you can modify the closeness of words and sounds and make it easier to pronounce. And so there are rules of phonetics that you're allowed to do that, but you can't change so much that you veer off out of your lane and into the lane where you're actually using another word now, because you changed the meaning of your sentence if you've adjusted the sound of the word, and it's not the old word at all anymore. But notice we've got above and we've got under. Notice we've got up, ana, and we've got down, kata. Now, those are not related linguistically or derivatively, but they're opposites of one another, opposite directions, opposite in their significance. We've also got one through, and it cuts through that circle, and the preposition is dia, as in diameter. Dia, as in dialogue, conversation between. And so that actually comes from a totally different source than many of the other prepositions do. You've also got alongside, para. parallel, parallelogram. On the other side, you've got a yellow circle, around, concerning, perimeter. I'm talking to you tonight about, and so you're getting a general sweeping idea, but I'm setting some boundaries around the outside, but it's a general sense, So all of these prepositions are significant. Opposite, remember, we've talked about this recently, we came onto it in the book of Daniel, also in 2 Thessalonians, anti, as an antichrist. We would use it for anti-God, antiseptic, antibacterial, anti. But we haven't quite caught the real significance because it isn't just contrary or opposite. It actually has a little different idea. And we can merge into and we can wind up that it becomes anti. But it really means the opposite of. In fact, many of the earlier lexicons, Greek dictionaries, are going to help you by providing a slew of words that will capture this thought. And one of them would be substitute. And the movement and the feel of the word is to lean against something like a person, push him out of the way, and then take his place in line. And that's the Antichrist. So it's contrary in what it accomplishes, but actually it means to be the opposite of and leaning against and then pushing out and substituting, even counterfeiting to be an exact match and replace the person or the object that's there. So anti. Now you notice that quite a few of these are all two syllables. Some of them are one syllable, like en or in, pra. I want to read to you a quote. This comes from a grammarian. Greek Prepositions is the book, and I have a number of books on prepositions alone. Can you believe that? Who in the world would be interested enough to purchase books on the Greek prepositions that can range hundreds of pages long? Well, I'll raise my hand, because I have 4 of them, and I have a lot of material that's part of other grammars, but not a book in itself. So I have 4 books just devoted to that. But may I read this to you? This is 1850. But listen to what he says, and you judge for yourself whether this is a match for what I've been talking about for the longest time, about the importance of accuracy, and that we can't have all kinds of meanings assigned to one word and have any hope of determining, so what does a word mean? Is there a scholar, and notice the old-fashioned capitalization of key words within a sentence. You think this is like a title or something, but we have capital letters for words within the sentence itself. Is there a scholar that will venture to deny that many of the differences between men qualified to judge, not only in respect of their learning, but also of their truth and sincerity, those differences exist in the ambiguous senses now attributed to the Greek preposition, by which not only the same sense is supposed to be conveyed by various prepositions, but even the same preposition is considered to convey not only different, but even opposing senses. So different prepositions can all mean the same thing, and one preposition can mean all kinds of different things, including opposites. So, a little bit later tonight, we'll come to epi. Epi. Preposition, Greek preposition, occurs just under 1,000 times through the New Testament. So if I were to say to you, put the book, epi, the chair, you tell me right now where you'd put it. Or would you put it under? Or would you put it behind? Or would you put it alongside? Or would you put it on top of? Or would you put it parallel to? Where would you put it? You say epi because you know epi means upon, but what if I told you there are a lot of other definitions that are going to be brought into this without batting an eye, and you say, how can that preposition mean all those things? And then when you import it into a context, And you're using words that really don't have a whole lot to do with upon, and yet that's how they're translated through the scriptures in different settings. And now I'm really confused. So if we can understand what the word actually means. There are monosyllabic prepositions, that is one syllable. En, es, ek, pra, pras, sun. Those are all one syllable. And so there is a little more, a lot more information about how we arrive at that. I'm only going to pick one idea that comes out of that in just a few moments. It's actually a two-syllable word, but it fits the profile of the one-syllable words. We have a number of disyllable words. Amphi. We could even, the pi, the phi and the pi, that's a P, and a beta, that's a B, are all considered to be labials. We can take every one of the Greek letters that are consonants and divide them into a chart. And you have some that are guttural, kappa, gamma, chi, guttural, back of the throat. We have some that are labials, b, p. They're all divided, and we can actually transmute between them as there are euphonic changes that are going on in different forms of words. You begin with this letter, but this time it's followed by a vowel. So you prefer not to have it be this guttural sound, but actually this other sound. Well, you're permitted to do that, actually, in phonics. But when you're looking at all of these, two syllables, but where do they come from and what do they mean? So I've given you a quick summary. But I would like you to understand that as we're doing this, I am more interested in you realizing the ramifications of all these prepositions in spiritual matters and in theological matters than just in physical locations of the mouse and the cheese, the book and the chair, a person and the building. Is he in the building? Is he coming into the building? Is he going out of the building? Is he on top of the building? Is he under the building? It's not just the material, but the Bible has a number of things that are like that all the way through Scripture. But what about epi, in a sense of build your house upon the rock? And you're not talking about, are you going to construct a house? I didn't know you were going to build a house. And where's it going to be? I've seen a lot of rocks in New Jersey, out in the forested areas, and early on while I was here at Parsippany, I did some hunting there, really enjoyed it. But you got lots of rocks, but of course you may not see all those rocks in your backyard or in town. But you talk about building your house on a rock. Are you talking about actually a literal house and a literal rock? Or is that what Jesus had in mind when he gave us that story? So there is much spiritual truth, but you need to know what epi means. Here's the one. It's dia, as in diameter. And the background of this, unlike most prepositions, is duo. Duo is two. So the diameter is two sides. Dialogue is logos, to speak, to converse, to talk, between two parties. Dialogue. So the dia actually is not constructed and derived quite like most of the other prepositions, but it actually comes from the meaning of two. All the others, the anti, the para, the peri, and so on. I want to give you briefly tonight and hope that I don't bore you out of your gourd. This is a study that really is not done in Bible colleges, seminaries. It's a classic study, and it has its roots back with a man named Francis Bopp. He's one who actually developed and solidified and theorized and then proved language formation in a lot of ways. And he did this also with the pronouns, the Greek pronouns. And he understood the background of the pronouns many times, especially the two-syllable. Now, understand we travel through a lot of time and quite a bit of change, but the essence remains the same. It builds upon the fact that we have, in all of life, there are but three positions. And that shows up when you have the verb form And remember, at the end, appended to every verbal form, every pure verb in the Greek language, is the pronoun. The subject of the verb is in the verb. So if we had a verb, the root is lu, to loose or release. And now we're going to begin to attach one at a time the first person singular, second person singular, third person singular. So we know the subject is actually right in the verb. Actually, I think I didn't bring the verb, just the noun chart, so I'll just stay with that for right now. Luo, lues, lue, luamen, luethe, luusi. I loose, you loose, he, she, or it looses. We loose, you all loose, they loose. And all they did to the lu is put the pronoun. And we also have secondary pronouns. There are short, simple, streamlined sounds that very early on in the Indo-European languages represented the first, second, or third person, singular, plural. They're called pronoun or pronominal elements. And when you're going to show relationship, very frequently you're going to take one of those elements that represent the here, that's me, the near, that's you, and the distant, the far, that's they. Rather impersonal, distant, indirect. But I'm going to take one pronoun element, and then I'm going to take another pronoun element, and I'm going to combine the two. And it is demonstrating and depicting a relationship between here and there, between there and there, between there and here, between here and there. And every one of those combinations become the prepositions that talk about, is it above, is it below? Is it in, is it going out? Is it out but coming in? Is it down below? Is it running parallel? Is it on both sides? There are combinations of pronoun elements in their simple forms. And a man wrote a book entitled The New Cratylus. So his name was Donaldson. He took Bopp's work and codified and classified and collated, and has done just tremendous theoretical but really substantiated work, that this is where the majority of the pronouns developed. And now we can do a lot of things with the pronouns from that point on. When we form words, we can form through derivation. I gave you one example of dia. The N actually was the locative case, or accusative even before that. What I mean by the accusative case, let's take the word logos. L-O-G-O-S, lambda, omicron, gamma, omicron, sigma. There are typically, accepted today, 5 cases, but actually there were 8. I actually hold an 8-case system, and I believe I can prove that. The commonality of the ending doesn't prove there are only 5 cases. I can show you that in English. Book. Now you tell me, is that the subject? Is that the object? Is that the indirect object? Book. Do you have an ending to tell you? Do you have a context yet? How are you going to use the word book? Suppose I just speak to you, book. But if I use the word, the book is a good read. It's the subject. Give me the book. Object. That's accusative case. Give the book to her. That's not subject. That's not object. In English, we call that indirect object. That would be the dative case in the Greek language. But guess where the preposition N derives? It actually was the ending on the accusative case, the O-N, or in a slightly different form and a different noun structure, E-N. That N locates and restricts and puts it in a specific locale. And actually, N is a locative preposition. You won't hear that today from hardly anyone else because they will assign to it dative and instrumentality. As though they're all one, you can take your pick. But to be baptized en pneumati, in spirit, is not the same thing as to be baptized by spirit or with spirit. They're not the same thing. So actually, en is location, and it's static. The other cases that are used here are instrumentation or means, or personal agency, or in the interest of, like an indirect object, but not en. En is not that. So when we have this, we now have case endings, and case endings become very significant in the formation of a lot of words because there's a reason for that ending there, and those and the pronoun elements are not very far apart in their use and their development. But that will give us a case function, and there are many of them depending on the case and depending on the plural, singular, and so on. And also the same thing is true of the verb, because luo, lues, lue, luamen, lueta, luusi, that's going to change when it's middle or passive. Luomai, lue, luetai, luamatha, luestha, luantai is not the same thing as what I cited for you before. They're different endings. So one are called primary and the other secondary. What are the senses of the prepositions? And this would be my goal for you, that if we could at least understand the general meaning of that, we can then stretch it within context, but you can't stretch it until the balloon pops. You just can't do that. You can stretch it into some very colorful, meaningful uses, but you can't violate the meaning of that preposition. You can't just take it out of context and manipulate it and destroy it. But let's take, for example, en expresses that the relation is natural. Now, this comes from a Greek writer who talks about these prepositions, and I might word this a little differently, but what he means is if something is in, it's at rest, it's located here, it's in the middle, it's set, it's seated, it's centered, and you are in Christ. You are seated, Christ. In the heavenlies, not with the heavenlies, not by the heavenlies, in the heavenlies. And all that is en. I've just put in a burnt orange color there, which probably you can't even read. John warned me that some of the colors don't always show up. I'm not colorblind, but you wouldn't know it by some of these PowerPoints. But the para, there actually is no relation. Now, how do we get that? You tell me, in a mathematical sense, if you have two parallel lines, where's the juncture? Nowhere, because they're parallel. Now, that's not the limit of what para can mean, because it's used of being from. So something is delivered, say, from God, but it doesn't mean there's a joining or a symmetry or a convergence of a person like a prophet and God, but that they were alongside of God, and God gave them the word. So there's proximity, there's perhaps even nearness, but there's never coming together in one spot. That wouldn't be possible with two parallel lines. But it involves motion and traveling, but it's alongside. A little bit more, the ek is origin, out of. Ek talks about the source, and actually it would not be the genitive case, which some would say in a 5-case system. The ablative case, while having the same ending, is a very concertedly different case. Ablative means the source, so something comes out of. You need to have faith out of a tender heart. Ek, out of. The source is out of. It's like having a reservoir and what comes out of it. And ek would be your preposition of choice. We could drop down to ace. Now we have this long debate and interesting discussion of two things that are pointing in the same direction, but they're not the same. They're not synonymous. One is purpose, one is result. I talked to you about this last time. So your purpose is to read your Bible every day in 2021. Pros, toward, that's the goal. The result might be different than your goal. And that's why ace is the preposition that talks about putting your faith into Christ. It's like an arrow that penetrates the target. Pros, purpose. Ace, result. There is a spiritual, a philosophical meaning behind most of the prepositions. And that's in part why they're more suited for certain contexts and ideas that God wants to communicate than would be a different preposition. As well, we have soon. Let's talk about soon. Let's talk about meta right after that. And that way I can really pass beyond this when I show you a chart once again and talk about it a little bit. You got two words. They both mean with. With. Soon and meta. Soon as in fellow athlete, fellow worker, fellow apostle, fellow servant, fellow soldier. Soon, compounded with a noun showing closeness. But the difference between soon and meta is a group of chairs. The chairs are with one another. They're down in the other classroom. They're a chair with another chair with another chair. Meta. There's association. Soon is a lump of clay. Where the individual identity is lost and there's a collectivity and a symmetry and a oneness with all of it. Soon is a key word to talk about the fellowship that the people of God have and all that we have in common. But we're not just retaining total independence from one another. We are collectively all one in Christ. So soon and meta, they're both with, but they're not the same with. And then as well, we have apa, apostasy, apostle. Apa is you take that circle and then you leave from the outer shell from that point and you're going out. Ek is from within going out. Apa is to leave the vicinity, leave that and go. So an apostle is one sent from. There's a detachment with the apa. There's an emphasis upon away from. Away from. So an apostle is sent out. Apostasy is leaving behind. So we've got apa. There's a spatial separation there. And this author calls it absolute separation. Hupa is inferiority. Underneath, if I am under my master, I'm in a subservient position. Huper is above. And that also, remember, we covered that last week. That is well suited and frequently used of Jesus Christ died on behalf of our sins. Huper. He is our representative. He is over us. He watches over and superintends, and he accomplishes for us. It's translated many times as for. That's kind of a weak way of saying Jesus died for our sins. It's on behalf of our sin penalty that he paid the price. We also have pra, which is priority, anti, which is substitution. All those are ideas and concepts that are communicated in the relationship realm. Another quote by this same individual, Herman Heinfetter. I asked them, and this is an important one. I hope you'll listen here. You got to follow him because we're talking about something 170 years old in being written. But the truth of what he says. I asked them, what nation could converse, act, and transact with a language in which any preposition means almost all things and often opposing things and sometimes nothing? Where the same preposition may mean in or near, before or after, under or over, for or against, on, during, of, concerning, with, by, from, to, etc., etc., etc. Same preposition. How do you even hold a conversation? You use a preposition, and the listener says, well, which of those 27 meanings goes with this preposition? And you might, in a context, be able to say, well, I'm pretty sure, because he talked before about this being above or is up. It was on a shelf, up on a high shelf. He said, I think it means over or above. But you know, if you don't have enough clues in the context, you could pick the wrong meaning and take the nuance of what he's saying completely wrong. And God didn't leave us with that kind of dilemma. So he also goes on to say, yeah, this is the teaching of the present day. And now he says, see epi, because these are the prepositions that are listed for epi. If you're not sure of that, each of the Greek prepositions has its own particular distinctive signification, or rather sense. That's his position, that's my position. So there's a wheel of the different meanings in the New Testament, color-coded to show you the frequency relative of each of those. Where there wasn't room is from the 2 o'clock to the 3 o'clock section, where you have so many different translations for epi. Now remember, you've got 890 occurrences in a total of 782 verses through the New Testament. And the frequency is color-coded and divided, and we could show another color wheel to show you exactly where those occur in what books of the Bible. But this tells you how often they're translated by, this is at the 5 o'clock position, on, or in, or to, or upon, or over, or at, or for, or against, or before, or of, and then another dozen different translations that won't fit on the chart, because in this wheel of 900 instances, you can't even list them all. So what are we going to do? And my suggestion to you is that every preposition has a derivation or a composition that gives us a sense of what it actually means. So I want to help you with that with epi for just a couple of moments. So there's epi, and there's the mouse on top of the cheese. And in general sense, it means on or upon, but precisely it's in contact with, as touching, as connected with, as having to do with, but resting upon and in contact with, and as it pertains to this specifically. So it's a location, but it's not just a physical location. But on account of that, if I said, put the book, epi, the chair, Simeon was right. I wouldn't want to come back and say, where's the book? And you say, well, I put it under the chair, just like you told me to. No, I said, epi. Well, epi means beside, or under, or over, or at, or near, or from, or... No, epi means upon. So if you're talking physical location, if you're talking spiritually and theologically, then actually you're talking about in contact with, resting upon. So actually, epi is a fitting preposition for physical construction and logical conclusions, both. Foundational truth as a basis for subsequent development and application. Upon the basis of this, we conclude this. So it's construction, it's logic or belief or a building on top of this, touching this, in contact with a solid foundation. That's epi. So when you find epi, you'll find that. And then compound words that incorporate epi as a prefix. Epi this, epi this, epi this, epi this. Epidermal. All of that. Examples include, there are hundreds of Greek words that begin with epi, and they're compounded with other words, other primary vocabulary terms. I just grabbed the first bunch, left only a very few out, and didn't even touch all the rest of them. But here come some of them. To walk upon, to gaze upon. Epi-eges, upon the earth, earthly. That's people on the earth, earthly. Fixed or firm knowledge based upon empirical truth. Epignosis, that's to know upon solid foundation. That's empirical truth, and you have put your faith and rested it on that truth. That's saving knowledge. It's not just to know about the plan of salvation, it's I know it. I know it because I've experienced it. I've read it. I know it's true. The Bible says it's true. I know it's true. So to know something in a saving way uses that word. Then you've got inscription, to write upon. That'd be like a clay tablet before you bake it. To inscribe upon. Laying hands upon. Calling upon the name of the Lord. On and on. But epi by itself by itself almost 900 times. Not in compound, just by itself. That's a lot of times. Examples in the New Testament. Matthew 4:4, but he answered and said, it is written, man shall not live on the basis of, in contact with the support of, bread alone, but on the basis of every word that proceeds from the mouth of God. On that basis we live, in contact with that truth. The devil took him into the holy city, had him stand upon the pinnacle of the temple. Nor does anyone light a lamp and put it under a basket, not under, but upon, and it gives light to all who are in the house. You put a lamp on the lampstand, epi. Therefore, if you're presenting your offering at the altar, okay, you got the general point, but it's not really at so much as it is putting your offering upon the altar. You're in the act of sacrificing. You're in the act of putting it there to offer it to the Lord. And there you remember, my brother has something against me. You know what? In good conscience, I think that that's more important. And before I offer to the Lord, I need to go take care of business with my neighbor, with my friend, with my church member. And so you leave your offering there. You can always come back. But not just at, but upon. Matthew 6:27, and who of you, by being worried, can add a single hour to his life? That's upon. So how many days have you lived? And if you think hard enough, you really squint, and you clench your fists, and you grit your teeth, and you just say, I'm going to live another day. So, what if it doesn't work? Do you think that by thinking it, you will make it happen? You will add upon your life one more day. So you'll add on one more day. Matthew 7:24, therefore, Matthew 7:24, everyone who hears, actually I've duplicated those two, and acts upon them may be compared to a wise man who will build his house upon the rock. And that final one, Matthew 9:9, Jesus went on from there. He saw a man called Matthew sitting in the tax collector's booth. Actually, it doesn't really say in. It's at the point of, upon that site, that location. We think of a toll booth like when you drive and you're going to go across the George Washington Bridge and there's a person in a toll booth. But actually, this is talking about his exact location, that he's upon the point of, at that exact spot. But it's in contact with that. So all of those are there. I have two quick just try this out. We're looking here now at compound prepositional forms. Preposition plus a word. It could be a noun, it could be a verb. 1 John 1:3, and I have a quote there from Donaldson. He's the man I have cited as being, I think, the lead and the greatest one who's ever worked on the pronominal formation of the prepositions. Prepositions have come to be prefixed for the sake of greater distinctions. Let me give you one example before we walk into this. Agorazo is by. It is from the background of the agora. What's the agora? The open marketplace, a field. But it's where everybody came and bartered, and they bought and sold their wares. So agorazo, the agora plus adzo is the verb ending, to transact, to do, to cause to happen in the agora. To cause what to happen? Purchasing. You're buying your daily food. So agorazo is to purchase. But if you're going to put that into a text, in a context, as Paul does, the apostle, talking about you and I having opportunities, and we can't afford to waste them, he says, buying up, redeeming the time, because the days are evil. And that's ek plus agorazo. To buy out of the marketplace, to walk in and purchase it, wrap your arms around it, and take it home with you. You own it. That's the same word, same form. Jesus bought us out of the marketplace of the world. But to agorazo is to buy. To ex-agorazo is to buy it all up. Everyone you can find. You spend everything you have and you collect it and you stuff it in the bag and you walk out of the marketplace with it. And when you have opportunities for the Lord, grab everyone you can. So that ek intensifies the verb. Now, to our subject. Word formations come by derivation, but also by composition. What we have seen and heard, John wrote in 1 John 1:3, you might remember, you might guess, you might know. But the word is apangelo. Apangelo. Quick rule of thumb, because I know you're dying to know. When you have two gutturals, two gammas, or a gamma and another guttural, the first one becomes N, and the second one retains the sound of the guttural, and this happens to be G. So it's A-N-G-E-L in the pronunciation. Angelo, or angelas. It's not agagas, it's angelas. Two gammas, two gutturals in a row. First one being a gamma. That's the rule of pronunciation. So it's apa plus message, communicating a message. But the preposition gives you the direction. Apa. Who remembers what apa means on that chart? In what direction is it going? What's the significance of apa? I'm catching you way, way off guard. Apa is back. Apa. Apology is a return defense. To apologize is a comeback, but it's movement away from. But here it's a message from. Now I can tell you what it says in 1 John 3 in your translations, NASB in particular, proclaim. Okay. It certainly has to do with announcing a message, communicating a message, but what's the apa doing there? So might I correct the proclaim? We bring back report to you. We return with a report. We're commissioned and sent with this report. It's not just to tell, to announce, to say, to jot down, to send a letter. And what was that report? It's that which we have seen and heard and our hands have handled, that message that was Christ himself. We give you that report. We come back to you with that report. But now, 2 verses later, we've got angelia, and we've got the verb form again. This is the message, angelia, which we have heard from him, and an angelo. What's ana? Upward. So what are we doing with this message? We bring back the report, and now we have a message to give to you from God, and it's in verse 5. God is light, and in him there's no darkness at all. So the incarnation of Christ, we've seen him, we've heard him, we've touched him, we know all about him. We've watched him in all of his earthly ministry, and we bring back that report to you to confirm it's true. Jesus is God, God the Son. And then he says, we want to have fellowship with you. That's verse 4. We want fellowship. And our fellowship is actually with God. So now I need to share with you a glorious truth, a message that comes from God, and I lift it up for you right now. Listen to it. God is light, and in him there is not a particle of darkness. Meaning, if you want fellowship with God, you need to walk in the light, because that's the only way he will fellowship with you. But this is the message we lift up. So the one is apa angelo, apangelo. The other is ana angelo, anangelo. The one is come back with a report. The other is lift high the message. And it's communicated by compounding the preposition with the word that's already there. The angelos, the message, the messenger, as though an angel. Prepositions mean everything. 1 John 1:5, yellow, are all prepositions. What was from apa, the beginning, what we have heard, what we have seen with our eyes, what we have looked at and touched with our hands, concerning peri, concerning, around, wrapping a rope around the message we want to talk to you about, peri, the word of life. And the life was manifested, and we have seen and testify and proclaim to you the eternal life, which was with the Father. That's not sun, it's not meta, it's pros. The message that was in the presence of God, that was Jesus and God together. And God gave Christ the message to communicate to you and me. Christ was toward the Father. It shows face-to-face connection toward the Father, and was manifested to us. What we have seen and heard, we proclaim apa angelo, to you also, so that you may have fellowship with us, meta, and truly our fellowship is with the Father and with his Son, Jesus Christ. These things we write so that our joy may be complete. This is the message we have heard from him, and now lift up to you. God is light, and in him there's no darkness at all. I tell you, think of me as crazy. Think of me as, wow, such a small thing. You're making such a big deal about it. This is God's word. And understanding what it's actually saying depends upon our being able to precisely define even the little big words, the prepositions, because they're relational all the way through the Bible. And if you don't get that right, I'm sorry, but you won't get the rest of it right. If you don't get the details right, you'll miss the point. So may God help us to know and to love his word more and more. We'll come back next time. I'm going to begin to move at a faster speed. I'm not going to spend lots of time preposition by preposition, but I do hope that I'll be able to help you along the way just to get a sense of what each preposition is about, and therefore what it couldn't mean. We will surely spend a little time with N because of all the prepositions. I think the doctrinal mess that we're in, including charismatic Pentecostal confusion, derives from not translating N properly. And that comes from making that mean in, with, by, who cares, it's all the same, or it's all different, but it's got lots of different meanings, so pick one. And that's not true. So if you miss that, you're going to miss important doctrine. Time's up for tonight. Any quick comment, question before we take our prayer requests? So Ian. Sure. Yep. It is, of course, a word for an angel or a message, so it's a formal delivery. A messenger has an important job to do, like an angel does, and we are messengers for Christ. So it is an announcement, it's a heralding, it's all those things that are angelic-like, but it is an upward thing. It's a high and lofty privilege. And the message itself, God is light. That's a mouthful, John.
The word announce has the preposition on in front of it.
That's right. That's right.
And by the way, in is right there. We're in verse 5, from and in.
Yes. Yep. So we have a slew of prepositions, and there are some passages that are loaded even more. It's like they're on overload. How the apostles packed that many prepositions, but that's kind of standard, and it is essential that you know every one of those prepositions or you won't understand the message. So thank you for allowing me to indulge here tonight. Missionary letters. John's got one.